What's cooking, Ange?
Hey guys, so I was looking for a different recipe and a different way to use seafood. So I decided to land on shrimp, and you guys will probably laugh because I literally Googled shrimp recipes, right? And so I ran across this recipe. I'm sitting in the parking lot at the grocery store. As I looked at it, I thought, I think I can make a few tweaks to make it a little bit more healthier so it fits within our lifestyle, but yet make it something that's not very complicated that I think really anybody can do. So what I've done is, first off, I go very early to the store on Fridays, and so the fish market isn't open. So I bought this bag of frozen shrimp, and this is basically what they call peeled and deveined. So the shell is taken off, and they've taken off the vein of the shrimp itself, and it's frozen. So this afternoon, when I got ready to think about making this, I just read how you need to thaw out the shrimp, and you wouldn't want to just let it sit at room temperature. You need to put it in a strainer, and then run cold water over it continuously and just move it around until all the shrimp basically is thawed out. And then I just left it, I stuck it inside this bowl and then stuck it in the fridge because the bag said it's best if you thaw it and then let it sit in the fridge for a little bit. And interestingly enough, there's quite a bit of water on this, which is good. The other alternative is you can go to Hy-Vee and go to the fish area. They're gonna have shrimp that doesn't have, that's all peeled and deveined. So we'll see how this works tonight. And I think this is a pound is what I have here, and I think it was maybe $10. So the nice thing about eating shrimp, so just a second, I'm gonna turn my oven on. One thing about shrimp that I think maybe not everybody knows is how good it really is for you. So 4 ounces of shrimp, so this would, for normal people, be 4 servings. For Nick and I, I'll have 4 ounces, Nick will have 12, which is great. It's 120 calories, 2 grams of fat, 24 grams of protein. So a lot of protein, limited number of calories, very little fat. So it's a great protein source. The one thing that you should always do with seafood before you cook it is make sure that you've taken out as much moisture as you can, because the more moisture that's in it when you cook it, you lose the ability to have a sear on your shrimp. So that's very important. So what we're gonna do is I usually just pat it with a towel. So you'll see as we do other videos doing things with like scallops and anything else, I typically just pat it dry with a paper towel. The other thing we're gonna do is just add some salt and pepper. And I've got my my stovetop heating up to about a medium-high heat. And then I'm gonna add a little olive oil, and then we're gonna sear these shrimp. These shrimp are gonna cook very, very fast. And the key with shrimp is to not overcook it. And you'll know if you overcook it, become really small, and it'll be tough. So we're only gonna cook it about a minute or 2 on each side. Once it barely starts to turn pink, and then I'm gonna pull it off. Because as I make the sauce, I'll throw the shrimp back in the sauce and it'll cook a little bit more. So at the end, it should actually be great. While this is going, I am going to serve this over what I call what is jasmine rice. The thing about rice, you can buy. Can you still see me? You can buy rice that's already packaged and already heated or already kind of all pulled together, and all you have to do is throw it in the microwave. And I've done videos before doing that when I'm in a hurry. And actually, when I ran across jasmine rice, I was excited to find that I could get it in a Minute Rice brand. The only ingredient is jasmine rice. The thing I like about jasmine rice has a little bit more flavor than regular rice, kind of an aromatic type flavor to it. It's a bit lighter, so I like that. And it's basically equal parts of rice to water. You boil the water, add the rice, shut the burner off, throw a lid on it, 5 minutes later it's done. So this is already, it's done and sitting there, and when I put my hot shrimp sauce over the top of it, it'll heat it all right back up. So let's come back in a few minutes after we've...
So one thing on the rice is you could save some of that rice for leftovers for other meals too.
For sure.
Right?
Yep, and if we end up with extra leftover, you could definitely do that. Yep. For sure.
We'll be back.
Hey guys, so I pulled the shrimp off. You can see it's just starting to turn pink. It's critical that you pull it off before it gets overcooked, and you'll be able to tell, because if it gets overcooked, it's very pink. Like if you have shrimp cocktail, that is like as much cooked as what you would want it, which is probably too far cooked for this. If it's undercooked, that's okay, because again, it's going to cook in the sauce. So what I did then is I added about a tablespoon and a half of butter to that pan. And then I started, just a second, sauteing a shallot, one single shallot. And I've cooked that for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Now I'm adding just a little bit of white wine. And what I'm doing there is I'm actually pulling up all the crispy bits that are in the bottom of this pan so we can get all that flavor. To that, I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic. And if you're somebody who likes your own, buy a clove of garlic and mince it, you can definitely do that. I usually buy it already minced and then I can throw it in as I need to. Oh, crap. Is it on?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, sorry. Super sensitive smoke alarm. So now that I've got that in there, next thing I'm going to do is add about a cup and a half of cherry tomatoes. We're going to let these cook out. So with these cherry tomatoes, they're going to cook here, and they're actually going to like soften up and start to release all their juices, and they become part of the sauce. One of the, I would say, hacks that I did is this recipe called for 3 tablespoons of butter, which I've cut that in half. It called for a half a cup of cream, which I'm cutting that in half. And to be able to do that, I'm adding, I'm guessing about how much I'm going to use here, but somewhere around a half to a third of a cup of chicken stock. And with that, a teaspoon of cornstarch. So the reason for that is because definitely a lot less fat. The flavor you're going to get from the chicken stock. But with cream, it will thicken up as it starts to reduce. So because I'm adding a lot less cream and more liquid, I add a little bit of cornstarch because that will help thicken up and kind of replace what you would get from the cream. So, and I'm a firm believer in better than bouillon. I think it's, chicken stock is a little bit watery for me in this situation. This way I can dictate how much chicken flavor I want. So I actually always keep a chicken and a beef flavor on hand. I use it in soup and all kinds of stuff. So, and I swear these things will last multiple years. So this is, thanks Mom, this is a great idea. So I use that a lot. So my tomatoes are cooking. Hopefully, maybe you can see this, but they're starting to break down. My rice is already done. So that's over here. And I'm glad you talked about making extras so we have leftovers, because I already feel like we might have leftovers, which is okay. My goal here is limited sauce, lots of vegetables. And I'm just starting to break up these tomatoes a little bit more. Sorry, I guess that's a little loud. You may, so if you're somebody who's not necessarily used to cooking, don't get overwhelmed. Don't overcomplicate it. Again, I save things like this, something new, maybe multiple steps. I save these for a weekend, or save it for maybe you're taking some time off, some PTO time, and you're going to be home and have a little extra time to practice. And while it may seem like I'm using a lot of different things and maybe even different techniques, it's really not that hard if you don't let yourself be overwhelmed. The other thing I guess I would just suggest, and I've said this multiple times, let the internet be your friend. Think about what you have on hand from a protein perspective, and then just Google healthy recipes, and then just think about situations where maybe there's a lot of fat where you can kind of replace some of the fat, or if you're not comfortable doing that, shoot them to me. I'd be happy to take a look at them and try to give you ideas. The biggest thing I feel like is trying to figure out how you add as much protein and vegetables to whatever you're making. So, yeah, don't overcomplicate it.
And it's not like you're going to make something that's inedible.
Correct. Yes, you might have to tweak it, and to be honest, once I publish this recipe, it might be slightly different than what it is I talked with you guys about tonight. Because as we taste it, we may think, oh, it needs more this, it needs more that. And that's okay. That's completely
Training.
okay.
That's the training aspect.
Exactly. Okay, so these are pretty much broken down. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add I'm not going to add all this because I don't know that I need all of it. So we'll start with that. And I've chopped up about, a half a cup or so of fresh basil. I'm just going to throw this in here. I'm going to save a little bit of this for my garnish. And then I've got about 3 cups of spinach, and I tore it up because the leaves are a little bit big, so I tore it up. So think about all these vegetables that are now in here. And so now we're just going to let this kind of sit and simmer. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes, and then I'm going to add my cream. Because we want that spinach to wilt out. Sorry.
It's all good.
Why somebody would put a smoke alarm light right above your oven or your stove, I'm not quite sure.
Probably because that's where most fires start.
Probably.
Inch.
Probably.
I think it's the steam. It's the hot steam.
Yeah, it's just heat. It's not anything other than that. Okay, so my spinach is really starting to wilt out. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now I'm going to take my 1/4 of a cup of cream. We're going to add that. Just going to combine all this in together. You, if you're somebody who doesn't like seafood, you could literally take it to this point and have chopped up chicken and throw it in there.
Tuscan chicken.
Yep, exactly. So now that that's there, we're gonna throw, I have a 1/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan. We're gonna throw that in there. Turn this down just a little. And I'm gonna add all of this shrimp. And the one thing I didn't do, Nick, was get out any plates. Maybe you could just grab a plate for me. And now that our shrimp is cooked, everything is combined, the spinach is all wilted, the cheese is melting. This only needs to sit here very little because you don't want to end up overcooking your shrimp. And I'll take a spoon so I can spoon out this rice. I'm actually going to turn off my burner.
Husbands, you got to hand over the utensils and dry
You're the
the
sous
dishes.
chef. You're the sous chef. And you can see I don't have a ton of sauce because you don't need a lot of sauce. I feel like by cutting out all the cream, that helps. I mean, again, this isn't, I'm not going to eat this every night of the week. If you were looking for a cheat meal, great cheat meal that still probably fits pretty much within your macro.
I would say high performance meal for a lot of high performing athletes too, though.
Just my spoon. Yeah, I got a crap ton of rice. And you can play up this rice. You could make it with a little bit of light coconut milk. That would give it another bit of a flavor to it. There's a lot of ways you can play up this rice. Throw this over the top. I just went over vegetables. You could even play around with the vegetables. You could add broccoli to it. You'd want to parboil it maybe a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot you can do. And then I would just finish it off. There's nothing better than a fresh herb that sits on top of your dinner. And then I have a lemon, a little bit of squeezed lemon over the top.
Or all over the counter.
Or all over the counter. So there you go, Tuscan shrimp. Give it a shot.